For this episode, we talked with Sean Avery, who's President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. Listen closely as Shawn talks about the challenges, the opportunities, and the progress that's being made in the region. Thanks for meeting with us today.
Yeah.
And I've been looking forward to this episode since about halfway through the season.
Nice.
When I thought it would be great to go over some of the ideas and thoughts we had from some of our guests to sit down and talk with you about.
That sounds great.
Since you and I started this path almost 2 years ago
Yeah.
on this conversation to make this a possibility, I think we both felt that this was a great idea, that if we could tell the stories, it was a good idea.
I would say great
stories.
Yeah, exactly.
and I think we've been able to discover some of those and give people the opportunity to talk about them. And I feel like we've hit the mark that we wanted, which is to get the people that have been successful in this industry to tell their story in a forum that they don't normally get to talk about.
I totally agree. I mean, it's one thing to have me go out and present to individuals or present to schools, but I'm not in the industry. I'm not the ones that's doing the job. Actually having people that are out there that have lived this experience, telling other people about it, that's what really makes the difference. Because people can see themselves in those individuals and maybe get a nugget that's going to get them excited about the opportunities. And so I remember when you came to me 2 years ago and we were kind of like, hey, you were like, hey, I think we could do this. And I was like, yeah, that'll be fantastic. We've got to figure out a way of getting more people interested into this effort that we're putting together. At that time, it wasn't even called the Regional Maritime Training System. We just had an idea of how we were going to try to get more people interested in getting into the defense industrial base, building submarines, building our next generation of workforce in the maritime industry. And what better way to do that but having individuals talk about their experiences in those.
Almost everybody we talked to expressed how challenging it can be. Like, they're so proud of what they do and how they do it, and they're proud of their workforce. But just by the nature of the work, it's difficult to get that introduced to people who aren't already aware of it.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, like for me, my parents worked in the shipyard. My grandfather worked in the shipyard. I grew up in this area. I knew about it, but a lot of people don't. If you don't have a family member that's in this industry, it may pass you by because some schools aren't even talking about it. I mean, they're talking about technology, they're talking about healthcare, transportation and stuff. They're not talking about shipbuilding, and I don't know, we're about the same age. And as we've grown up, they've taken some of that skilled trades out of the high school and out of the career and technical education opportunities, and so they don't get that opportunity anymore. So it's almost re-educating individuals about all the opportunities that are available in the maritime industry.
That's probably been the most fun that we've had, is talking to people and seeing the senior people that own businesses or have been in the industry for a while tell their story about the various pathways that they had to get there, and then talking most recently with some really junior tradespeople who just entered it, and you feel the energy across the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
And we've been, I think, really careful to not come across as saying you don't need to go to college, or
Right.
college isn't worth your time. And more, I think when we talk to the junior tradespeople, many of them felt they simply weren't ready yet, or didn't know what they wanted to do. They didn't want to spend money they didn't really have, or go into debt. But now that they've spent some time in the industry, they see the continuing education opportunities. People who said, I don't want to go to college, are now saying, I can see myself going back to school.
Yeah.
And getting a 4-year degree or more, now that I understand what that means to be a engineer or
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we at the Workforce Council, we don't really even talk about degrees anymore. We talk about pathways and opportunities that you can learn a trade or learn some type of skill, get a certification, go into the industry, work there for a little bit, and then actually a lot of employers will help pay for you to continue your education. So you can go in, you can get a certification for welding, for example, go in, spend a couple months even learning a new trade, then get a specialization in that welding degree, move on up. Then you may see, hey, I am interested in engineering, or I'm interested in project management. there's so many different pathways. It's very hard for us to say, okay, you can go to point A to B, C, D, and E, because it could be all over the place. And so that's what we tell people to do. Find your passion, get in there, learn about the opportunities that are in that industry, find a mentor, find somebody that you kind of respect that's in there, that's doing this, talk to them about it, ask them how they moved around, and then start developing your own journey in this effort. I mean, it's so cool to be able to build something with your hands and things like that. And, you know, I sit behind a desk a lot. I don't get to do that. I don't get to build stuff with my hands. And there's a lot of people that just like that like to be able to build things. And so get in there and try it out first. Don't feel like you have to go to school and then go do it afterwards. Get in there and try it.
One of the early episodes we did was with Shonda Wyndham at Chesapeake Public Schools. And there's an example of a school district that has kept their program going and never went away.
Yeah.
And they continue to expand it. And one of the things we heard from them, I think, is an opportunity for the industry if we can figure out how to keep this collaboration and how to keep growing together. One of the challenges they have is in finding enough qualified instructors who can come back and teach the students. And it's probably the same in many other places, because teaching is such a unique skill. And just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you're necessarily good at teaching it either.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're finding that across the board. I mean, in all kinds of industries, because the job market is so tight right now. There's a few reasons. The job market is so tight right now. So most of the best instructors in the skilled trades, for example, were in the skilled trades. And so, but they can make so much more money going to work. And so being able to pay them what they're worth or what they can make in the industry, that's a tough bargain. So what we've been able to do actually through the federal government is actually get some funding to offset that difference between what they can make in industry and what they can make in the workforce. And so that's one way we're doing it. It does take a little bit of a special individual to be able to teach somebody. My wife's a teacher, and man, she comes home sometimes and woof, you can tell she had a rough day. That taxing, you know, working with individuals and making sure you're patient with them, that's tough. So got to make sure you find the right individual to do that. So, I mean, that's a big thing, helping to recruit the schools for teachers. One thing we're talking to industry about is, hey, how about maybe releasing some of your employees half day so they can go teach a course, or schools partnering together, whereas one instructor can teach at Portsmouth Public Schools in the morning, and then in the afternoon they can teach at Chesapeake Public Schools. So really thinking of those creative ways that we bring individuals in there. If it's a course where the instructor does not have to be on site, maybe there's some virtual aspects where we can spread it out among all of the school divisions. So I think we have to be very creative nowadays when it comes to instructors, for sure.
And has the industry been receptive to some of those suggestions?
I think they have. We work very closely with Newport News Shipbuilding. I think they're looking at some of that as well. I think industry is starting to realize too that they have to be creative in helping the education, because again, they're the ones that are going to need those individuals. And so providing that release time, bringing instructors in so they can learn exactly what they need on the job, and then putting them back into the school. So yeah, we're seeing that. It's easier for the bigger employers, you know, the one-man shop or the four-person shop. Very hard for them to let somebody go. But you know, working with Fairlead or working with Newport News Shipbuilding or one of those bigger ones, the Kiwanis, they may be more inclined to be able to do that as well.
That's such a challenge, and you talked about how taxing mentally and physically being a teacher is. I think one huge advantage here would be, it seems that the people that want to pursue those programs are so enthusiastic about it that they're just more willing students. So I don't think fatigue's going to get any worse, because they're just going to be exhausted from trying to fill that thirst.
Absolutely. I mean, with this whole campaign that we're doing, our numbers are spiking up. So classes are spiking up. So we're going to need more instructors, and it's across the board. So we've got 15 school divisions here. We have a couple regional educational systems in the region. The community colleges is looking for instructors. So we've got to figure this out. We've got to figure the instructor piece out, or we're going to have classes that are full with no instructors and we're having to cancel. And then right there, we've just kind of caused somebody to lose their momentum, and you know, they had a drive to get into it. And then if they have to wait a month before the class, I mean, that's not something we want to do. And so we're working very closely with our educational partners, with industry, with recruitment opportunities to get them in there, to get them trained so they can teach. There's been some legislation in the state where maybe an instructor who may have required a master's degree doesn't need to do that anymore, and they could use just their experience. So there's all kinds of conversations going on. One of the projects we're working on is working with the state, where we did a study as part of our Hampton Roads Strong program, where we were looking at how we can increase instructors at the community colleges. So we did a whole study on wages and what do we need to do to fill those wage gaps and things like that. So there's all kinds of efforts going on to meet that need.
There are so many training facilities and programs that are ongoing right now. If there were an opportunity to keep this program going, to do another series of these episodes, that would be I think that would be a really interesting way to kind of get in and focus just on those, so people get an idea of what's happening in those and what the opportunities are there.
Yeah, I'm going to stay positive. When we do season 2, over this next year, we're going to have a lot of new training facilities coming online. Virginia Peninsula Community College is going to be opening up a new maritime training facility. Pauldy Camp's going to be opening up a new facility out in Suffolk. Virginia Beach Public Schools just expanded their welding programs. Tidewater Community College, Rappahannock Community College, they're all in the process of building additional capacity at their institutions. And so we want to get that word out, because you know, an individual may be living in Portsmouth, but they don't know what's going on in some of those other areas. And this podcast and our marketing campaign that we're doing, we want individuals to know that there are training facilities all over this region that can meet their needs. They don't have to say, oh, I heard the program's over in Portsmouth, I live in Hampton, I'm not going to travel across that tunnel. Well, guess what? There's a program right up the road from you that's doing the exact same thing, that can train you, get you into the industry at the exact same pace if you lived in Portsmouth.
The uniqueness of this region creates some of the challenges. If somebody has to cross a bridge or a tunnel, that there's a physical barrier that can be broached, but sometimes it's not realistic. So being able to spread these out, but have equal opportunities in the different regions. Nobody wants to get on the HRBT at 3:30 in the afternoon if they don't have to. Not to make a class that starts at 4.
Yeah, and the good thing is too, everybody thinks Newport News Shipbuilding is the only one that builds ships. That's just not the case. We have suppliers, we have ship repair yards all throughout this region. I mean, even in Virginia Beach, where they're not even on the water other than the ocean. They're thinking, oh, there's no shipbuilding, ship repair. I think they've got 50 plus suppliers to the industry right there in the region. So, you know, that's just one city. So there's training opportunities throughout the region, but there's also employment opportunities to support the submarine industrial base, the maritime industrial base, and the defense industrial base throughout the region.
You mentioned legislation in there, and in our conversation with some of these small businesses, they talked about some of the frustrating aspects of being in business, and some of that is just the way it is. Often some of these small businesses don't want anything else. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily asking for more money. They really don't have the time or the staff to apply for and then maintain another program. In some cases, they're simply just asking for relief.
Yeah.
So we talked to one company in particular that talked about the challenges of getting their employees to work. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to bring on some people who've had a checkered background. Yeah. Some of these small companies are having to hire a driver to go and pick up their employees in order to get them to work until they can get back on their feet, because public transportation doesn't run the route, the hours don't support it, and as we all know, if you can't get to the job, you can't do the job. Yep. So it feels like there could be an opportunity there to take some of the burden off. If a business is willing to hire somebody like that, is there an opportunity? Are our legislators listening and saying we can find a way to take some of that burden away from you?
I think they are. Like some of the funding that we can use is for supportive services, and that's not just bus passes, but it's Ubers, Lyfts, which are more, straight to the point. So there are some of those opportunities. I wish I could say that the funding was more robust in those programs. It's really not. I mean, most of our funding is focused on the training, but I do know that there's conversations around that, is how can we better get individuals from point A to point B without having to go 3 or 4 different bus stops to get to those efforts. I wish I had the answer for that. I will tell you, there's many conversations going on. That is definitely at the top of the list, along with childcare is a big one that we're trying to figure out a little bit better on as well. So definitely the support mechanisms for both the employer and the individual is always something that we're trying to eliminate as a hindrance to both training and employment. I mean, it's the same thing with training. If somebody doesn't have somebody to watch their child, they're more than likely not going to go to a training program. So how can we eliminate that? Unfortunately, most of the money we have supports the training side of it, but we are trying to figure out, is there funding out there to support on, once they get on the job, maybe there's some stipends that we can provide as their first 6 months on the job, provide a stipend for that. I think we're still kicking that wall down.
Yes, some of these businesses have even taken it a step further. They're not asking for that, because that almost sounds like, well, now you got to track it, you got to report it,
Yeah.
you got to, right? And there's a burden to that. If they didn't have to pay the employer side of the taxes, if they hire somebody to do those things, that could make a difference. That could allow some of these businesses to grow the next step and do things internally that would allow them to hire more employees.
It's a great point. I mean, that is kind of some conversations we probably should be bringing up with our legislators. You know, we're getting ready to go into the General Assembly session. I know we'll be up there quite a bit. We'll have to have a conversation with Don Scott or Louise Lucas to see if we can help eliminate that tax, or at least take the burden off for a little bit. You know, I just want to continue to just hammer home how important this industry is to our region. And I'm sure all the guests that you've had on here have kind of in some way understood, or they've said that, you know, what they're doing is so important to both our region but our nation. What we need is a skilled workforce here in our region to really meet the needs both now and in the future. We've got to build these submarines. We've got to build these, repair these aircraft carriers. We got to make sure that we're putting out the workforce that's going to be successful in this region, because it's a national imperative that we get this right. And this is the time for Hampton Roads right now. We've got the water. We've got the assets in the region. You're not going to build a new Newport News shipbuilding in Charleston. It's just not going to happen. We've got that asset here. Let's support it. Let's get out there. Let's figure out a way to come in. There's so much training dollars in the system right now. If you're interested in this, this is your time. We'll pay for you to go to training. We'll help you get a job. They're hiring immediately in these positions. And so if anybody's watching this and they're still on the fence, just give us a call, because we'll be able to help you get in there and get you off that fence.
I think the number is somewhere between 15 and 20,000 high school graduates each year.
Yeah.
And we're only going to get so many of those directly into this. And Huntington Ingalls alone has said they need how many employees in the next few years?
Well, just the maritime industrial base in general is going to need 40,000 individuals in Hampton Roads over the next 10 years.
Can we source that internally? Do we need to attract people from outside the region?
It's all the above. Absolutely, it's all above. Just for example, you said the individuals coming out of the schools. That's a pipeline that we need to be working on. So just this past fall, we talked to 3,000 young adults who are coming out of the K-12 system, talk to them about the opportunities. That's definitely a driver. We're doing stuff in the military now, so our transition in service members and their families and the veterans, trying to get them into the industry. But yes, we do need to recruit individuals from outside the region. We need to get individuals to come in here to the region. One thing that I always hammer when I go to the state is the Commonwealth of Virginia invests in recruiting businesses to the Commonwealth to help grow those businesses. There is not a fund right now to help attract individuals to the Commonwealth to come work here. That is something we need to be working on. There are many areas where there are the same skill sets that we have here that we need here in this region in other parts of the country. Let's figure out a way to go out there and show them the opportunities that are available here and recruit those individuals. It won't be the only pipeline, but it needs to be one of the pipelines that we have coming into the workforce. You know, individual businesses do it, Newport News Shipbuilding does it, but they have the funding to do that. But like that small company you talked about, they don't have the resources to go out and try to find an individual to come here. So those are some of the big ones that we're working on. I mean, we're even talking about individuals who may have a second chance that are coming out of the justice system. How can we get them into the workforce? Maybe they committed a crime earlier in their career, but they've made a change. How do we get them into the workforce? And so it's not one pipeline's going to do it. We're even going down into North Carolina. We're going to basically a 100-mile radius of Hampton Roads to start recruiting individuals. But that's just us in our organization. To go bigger, we're going to need additional funding to do that.
Yeah, there's so many challenges in there, and therefore so many opportunities.
Right.
And and you mentioned two of those groups, and I've got connections with both of them. So as a veteran, certainly we know there's a big turnover of veterans every year. And if you're not from this region, so many people think when their service is done that they're going to go back to either where they came from or a previous duty station. And it's difficult because we don't want to be competing with the military for people, but we do have to find a way to get that message in front of servicemen saying, look, if this is your last duty station and that's totally your decision, letting them know what those opportunities are without making it look like we're trying to pull people out of the services here.
So we have two Veterans Employment Center, and that's their job, working on trying to help the transition service members figure out what they want to do next, and their families. That's important to say. You probably know the numbers just as best as anybody else. About 12,000 to 15,000 transition out each year. About a third of them stay here regardless. They're going to stay here. About a third of them go home, and we're not going to change their mind. But there's about a third of them that are they're trying to figure out their life and what they're going to do. And really what we're trying to do is show them all the options. And shipbuilding, ship repair is definitely one of those options. But we show all of the options in the region. But with this Regional Maritime Training System, we have put a specific focus on the maritime industrial base and trying to get individuals to stay. Just launched this fall, already had 350 people go through kind of the program. We're trying to get it as part of Skill Bridge, so really promoting it as an opportunity to kind of feel it out before you get out of the military. And we're starting to get a lot of individuals interested. Maybe somebody who went through 4 years of the military and they were a mechanic at the shipyard or at one of the bases. They may be interested in going in there, so let's show them the opportunity. Or you may have an officer who's thinking about, okay, I'd like to get into the supply chain management piece at the shipyard because that's a big part of what we're doing. So let's figure out a way of getting them connected to those. So it's really about informing them of the opportunities and showing them the pathways and really connecting them directly to the employment opportunities that are available.
Reaching them early before they make that decision to leave is so important. Just like reaching high school students, right? If we try to reach them in their senior year, it's probably too late. The sooner we can expose them to what the opportunities are, what the work is, we have a better chance of hooking their interest and keeping them moving in
High
that
school's
direction.
almost too late. We're actually developing coloring books for elementary schools. We're in middle schools doing career Go-Tech programs where we're getting them hands-on experience and trying to figure that out. So, I mean, we're going down deep. I mean, hey, we may be in delivery units soon at the hospitals starting to talk about shipbuilding, ship repair. You got to get them on the path to understand the opportunities that are available here pretty early because, you know, schools have changed. They're talking career exploration activities pretty early. They want you by the time you get to 9th grade, you've kind of started to go down your path. And so we got to get down there early.
You feeling like we're making some inroads there?
I do. I feel like again, we have 15 different school divisions. Each of them have a different set of resources that they can pull from. But I do think that they're all starting to get that. I think our career and technical education instructors and the directors really kind of see that, hey, this Hampton Roads is a water community. I mean, that's our lifeblood. It flows through everywhere. Let's figure out a way to get connected up. And I think that the school boards and I think the elected officials are seeing that, and they drive some of that funding resources for the schools as well. And so, yeah, I do. I think we're making some serious inroads. Again, 3,000 students went through one of our programs just this past fall as part of World of Works in Chesapeake. And we had a World of Works in the maritime industry. So it's, I think we are starting to make a difference.
There are several other cities, New York, Baltimore, Washington State, that have maritime high schools. And my dream for this region, and I'm only qualified to be the janitor there, right? But I would love to see a governor's school for the maritime arts and sciences here, where we attract the best and the most interested kids into a program that becomes a model for the others. And I don't think that detracts from any other district.
No.
Right? It's just the most dedicated kids. At least for right now. And it exposes them to it, and it gives them the opportunity to graduate high school and go right to work in the industry.
I don't think that's a far off actual dream. Right down the road from where we are right this second is the Governor's School for the Arts. I mean, I love the arts. I think they're very important, but 40,000 job openings in the maritime. I think we can justify having a governor's school for the maritime industry in this region. And I think school divisions are starting to have that. City of Hampton, for example, Hampton City Schools, they have a maritime academy already. Hampton High School is already designated as their maritime school for the city of Hampton, though. But we need to expand that. Newport News is starting to talk about that. We're talking with Isle of Wight. We're talking with Virginia Beach. So, I mean, I think maybe that's one of our down, I don't want to say downfall because I'm like you, it's always an opportunity. We've got 15 independent school divisions. How do we kind of bring them together like the Peninsula has done with New Horizons Regional Education Center? Those 7 school divisions came together to develop that school. And we're talking to New Horizons. Okay, how can we develop some more maritime training at that regional center? And then maybe Chesapeake, who's looking at, expanding their center, could become the center for Norfolk and Portsmouth, and Virginia Beach could have one. I don't know if we'll ever get to one center just because of the pure size of our region, but if we get to 3 different centers that are strategically located that kind of serve as they work together and kind of coordinate those efforts, I mean, I think that's something that's very doable.
As you said before, the region is, it's so vast,
Yeah.
and it is spread out.
Yeah.
And there are so many different things within the industry that happen in all or just some of those regions that opportunity to build those different ones, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you do it up on the peninsula, it doesn't mean you can't replicate it down
Totally
here.
agree.
And it won't detract from anything.
No, I mean, and I think industry's even interested in supporting those efforts. I know Newport News Shipbuilding, who we meet with regularly, has put that as one of their agenda items, is how can we potentially get a governor's school for the maritime industry. I mean, I think it's been called different things, but I actually think that is probably something that'll be doable here sooner than later. Just because it's just so important right now, and so the focus that's going on in the defense industrial base and the maritime industrial base. I would just encourage anybody that's listening to this, and they probably got to this maybe through this, but visit maritimejobsva.com to learn all about what's going on. It'll also link you directly to buildsubmarines.com, where there's even more information about this industry opportunity. But this is the time. If you're interested in getting involved in this region, or if you just want to find out more, go to those websites because there's just a ton of different information on there. Plus, there's season 1 of the podcast they can watch.
Over and over.
And over and over.
And they can say nice things, they can tell all their friends, and they
Exactly.
can subscribe.
Exactly.
And download.
I mean, Bob, you get paid by the views, so let's get those numbers up, right?
Absolutely. Shawn, your name comes up over and over when we have this conversation about workforce in this region. Your organization has done an awful lot to bring this issue to light and to keep moving it forward. I want to thank you for this opportunity and for talking to us today.
Well, thank you very much.